The bakery had already begun throwing away the unsold cakes when a tired father quietly stepped inside, holding a few crumpled dollar bills so tightly that his hands trembled. He waited until every paying customer had left before walking toward the counter with his head lowered. His voice was barely audible as he asked if they had an expired cake that was no longer good enough to sell because his little daughter was turning 8 that evening, and he simply wanted her to believe that birthdays were still magical. Standing near the back of the bakery was a wealthy businessman named Jonathan Carter, who had stopped in only to buy coffee after a long day of meetings. He wasn't trying to listen, but every word reached him clearly. In that single moment, the noise of the bakery disappeared, replaced by a painful silence that reminded him of a promise he had once failed to keep. Before we continue this emotional story, if you believe kindness can change lives and that everyone deserves a second chance, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone you care about, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps stories like this reach more hearts. The father was named Michael Brooks, a hardworking mechanic from a small town outside Columbus, Ohio. Life had not always been this difficult. A few years earlier, he had owned a modest repair shop, paid his bills on time, and dreamed of sending his daughter, Grace, to college one day. But everything changed after a severe storm destroyed the garage he had spent years building. Insurance disputes dragged on for months, debts piled higher than he could manage, and medical bills from his late wife's illness consumed every dollar he had managed to save. One setback after another slowly pushed him into poverty. Yet through every hardship, Grace remained the brightest light in his life. She never complained when birthdays became smaller, when toys became fewer, or when dinner sometimes consisted of little more than soup and bread. Her smile somehow remained stronger than the struggles surrounding her. Jonathan Carter was known across the state as one of Ohio's most successful entrepreneurs. His companies employed thousands of people, and his name often appeared in magazines celebrating wealth and success. Yet beneath the expensive suits and polished speeches lived a man carrying invisible regrets. Years earlier, while chasing business opportunities, he had neglected his own family. His young daughter had once begged him to attend her birthday party, but an important meeting seemed more valuable at the time. A tragic accident took her life only weeks later, leaving Jonathan with a fortune that could buy almost anything except another chance to hear her laugh again. Since then, birthdays had become painful reminders of everything money could never replace. As Jonathan quietly watched Michael standing at the counter, he noticed the father's embarrassment. Michael never asked for charity. He simply hoped someone might have a cake destined for the trash. The young bakery employee hesitated, clearly wanting to help but uncertain about company policy. She looked toward her manager, who appeared uncomfortable, caught between business rules and basic human compassion. Jonathan saw tears beginning to fill Michael's eyes, though the exhausted father quickly wiped them away before anyone could notice. Without revealing who he was, Jonathan stepped forward and casually asked the manager to package every remaining fresh cake in the display case, along with balloons, candles, cookies, and several gift baskets. The bakery staff immediately began preparing the enormous order. Michael quietly started walking toward the exit, believing he had simply overheard another wealthy customer making an expensive purchase. Before he reached the door, Jonathan gently called his name. Surprised, Michael turned around, confused about how a stranger even knew him. Jonathan explained that he had overheard everything and asked if Michael would allow him the privilege of celebrating Grace's birthday. Michael politely refused at first, explaining that he had always tried to provide for his daughter himself. Accepting such generosity felt almost impossible. Jonathan admired the father's dignity and assured him that this was not charity, but a gift from one father to another. As they spoke, Jonathan learned about Grace's love of drawing, her dreams of becoming an artist, and the countless sacrifices Michael had made just to keep hope alive inside their tiny apartment. Every sentence reminded Jonathan of the conversations he wished he could still have with his own daughter. Something inside him shifted. He no longer wanted to simply buy a cake. He wanted to help restore a family's future. That evening, several vehicles quietly arrived outside Michael's apartment building. Neighbors peeked through their windows as bakery employees carried beautiful cakes, colorful decorations, food, flowers, and wrapped presents upstairs. Grace opened the apartment door expecting another ordinary evening, but instead found a celebration she could never have imagined. Her eyes filled with tears before she even saw the cake. She hugged her father so tightly that neither of them could speak. The apartment, once filled with worry, echoed with laughter for the first time in many months. Jonathan remained in the background, smiling quietly as he watched a little girl experience the birthday every child deserves. But the greatest gift had not yet been given. During the evening, Jonathan privately offered Michael a management position overseeing maintenance operations for one of his manufacturing facilities. It was honest work with fair pay, health insurance, and opportunities for advancement. Michael was stunned. Jonathan explained that he was not offering the job out of pity. He had spoken with one of Michael's former customers earlier that afternoon and discovered an overwhelming reputation for honesty, skill, and dedication. Those were qualities money could never purchase. The following months transformed both families in unexpected ways. Michael worked tirelessly, grateful for the opportunity he had been given. His leadership quickly earned the respect of his coworkers, and he soon became one of the company's most trusted supervisors. Grace flourished in school, joining an art program that nurtured her remarkable talent. She often painted scenes of hope, families, and bright sunrises after storms. Jonathan purchased one of her paintings and proudly displayed it in the lobby of his headquarters, where thousands of employees passed by it every year. Beneath the artwork hung a simple plaque that read, "Hope begins when someone chooses kindness." News of the story eventually spread throughout the community, inspiring local businesses to create programs donating unsold food to struggling families instead of throwing it away. Volunteers organized birthday celebrations for children whose parents could not afford them. What began as one father's humble request for an expired cake became a movement reminding people that compassion often begins with the smallest acts. Years later, Grace stood before a crowd at her first public art exhibition in Cleveland. Looking across the room, she saw her father smiling proudly and Jonathan standing beside him like family. She thanked everyone who believed in second chances and explained that her life changed not because someone gave her an expensive birthday cake, but because someone saw her father's dignity instead of his poverty. She reminded everyone that true generosity does not rescue people by making them feel small. It lifts them while protecting their pride. Before we reach the ending, we'd love to hear from you. Please comment with the words, "Kindness still matters if you believe one act of compassion can change an entire life." Jonathan later admitted that the greatest gift that evening had not been given to Grace or Michael. It had been given to him. After years of carrying guilt that no amount of wealth could erase, he finally discovered that while the past could never be rewritten, the future could still be filled with mercy, hope, and love. Helping one struggling father healed a part of his own broken heart that he believed had been lost forever. If this story touched your heart, reminded you of the power of compassion, or inspired you to help someone in need, please like this video, leave your thoughts in the comments, share it with your friends and family, and subscribe to the channel. Your support allows more people to discover stories that remind us all that sometimes the smallest act of kindness becomes the greatest miracle in someone's life. And somewhere today, someone may not be asking for perfection. They may simply be hoping for an expired cake while praying that another human being is willing to hear their heart.